We just got two big teasers from Maple recently, one for GMS and Inkwell talking about what to expect next in terms of content, and one from KMS, not even one full calendar day later. I'm just gonna ramble and summarize my thoughts. No script beyond some talking points I wrote down. I'm not gonna go over everything, but just some stuff. A fair bit of it I'll go over. I'll provide a link for the Inkwell note and the KMS test patch notes if you wanted more details or to follow along or whatever. Why am I doing this? Well, one, I jump-started this whole channel off with a video about my opinions on the Miracle Time event messages that just plague everyone with spam throughout their chat logs the entire day whenever there's a Miracle Time event, which is still an issue, and I wish they'd fix it. And also, I just feel like making an easier, more relaxed video right now, just talking about my thoughts and how I feel, instead of constantly doing class guides. Try something old and kind of a little new. Speaking of which, point number 2, I was working on a blaster guide, and Korea MapleStory's announcements included some blaster changes that effectively cut out most of the video that I was working on. I'll probably still put out that guide soon, and then just update it if/when we get those changes. Starting off with the GMS announcements, through Inkwell's most recent note, they talk about a public test server finally coming to GMS again. We used to have Tespia, and then they removed it at some point. It's good that we're finally getting one. It kinda sucks that it's coming within the first half of next year, because a lot of the issues that have been coming recently with the recent updates, a lot of those bugs that were discovered on those patches were discovered within the first hour of the server coming back up. I feel like they could fix a lot of this if we had the test server sooner. It's cool that we're getting one. Hopefully in the upcoming updates leading up to that server we have a lot less issues, but I don't know if that's going to be the case. We really need a test server, and I personally am going to try living in those servers when they come out. I find bugs on a daily basis. Going down, this one's purely for Interactive World, but they're entirely waiving the fee for Auction House, where recently they implemented a fee where it's 10% of the item is in Maple points, and it's minimum 10 Maple points when you list an item or buy an item. I personally think it's really dumb, so this is a good change. After that, he talks about what's upcoming for the MapleCon that's happening in October. I'm gonna skip past most of that. There's not really much to talk about here other than I wish that they had a digital pass online and that I could also get that vinyl that they show in the little tiny picture. I really want that. Right underneath that, they talk about what the next updates are upcoming and what's going to be in them. Us getting Legion Champ, that confirmation's pretty cool. They also talk about that in September we're getting the 2-minute class changes for all jobs. With that comes a lot of other class changes that aren't just homogenizing everything to 2 minutes. Some weird and some I'm not a huge fan of. Them compressing everything down into 1 to 2 minute chunks I think is an overall positive thing. I'm mixed on it, honestly. Some of it's pretty alright, some of it's eh. Past that point, they start getting into GMS exclusive stuff. The first one being level 3 link skills for all classes. I don't know if that applies to the stacking links. It would be kinda cool if it did, and we got even bigger stacking links. I personally doubt it, but it might happen. This one seems really novel and unique, and I personally am excited for it, especially when it comes time for me to do the sections of my guides where I usually put link skills. There's a lot of level 2 links that are really useful even at level 2, and also just some level 3 links that are barely useful at level 3. So it's kinda cool that they're pushing people to at least get characters to level 210 across the board. I'm excited to see how the links will change, and see how link skills transform per class with a lot of these updates. It's neat that they're having such a focus on link skills in general recently. The Mojuan link skill is huge, the Sia link skill we just got is great for Explorer mages, and it's just a good link in general because it also has crit damage, but the extra buff duration on top of that, that's becoming a lot more useful for classes, and the fact that it also works with AB link, that's pretty cool. I'm pretty sure all of those already have level 3 links though. I don't think the Mojuan one actually. But anyways, right below that, they also talk about ways to revive boomed gear. If you destroy it with Star Force saying past 15 stars. This is great for pitch drops in specific, because pitch drops range from, oh you can get one every other week, or you just won't see one running every boss every single week that you can for over a year. Not every case is like that, but I personally haven't seen a Commander 4 Searing drop in months. And when it did drop, it was for my party, and I did not get it. I'm still waiting on a CFE drop, so that sucks. But it's cool that they're giving us a way to get gear back. So if we boom something like Arcane or Pitched, it's not the end of the world, and it's not like, oh, I just have to wait potentially months to get these back. Depending on how they rework this is awesome. This is probably the best change listed in this whole Inkwell note, to me personally. Because a big pain point for a lot of people quitting is when they finally get their pitched items, and as they're sending it up, it just breaks. And then it's like, wow, I just wasted all that time and got nothing to show for it. And a lot of my friends in specific have left the game for long periods of time when that happens. One thing to note about this section is this paragraph right here though. Near the end of it, it basically soft confirms that we're getting that 30-star Starforce change that KMS currently has. Or it seems like we're getting that new Starforce system at least. Judging purely on the fact that it specifies when we bring over that feature. So it seems pretty likely we're getting the Starforce revamp. And if we have a way to revive boomed items with that, that'll be pretty nice. I don't know how to feel about that overall though. Hopefully we don't get the increased Starforce costs with it, but we'll see. Going further down, they also talk about burning gear and ways to ease out of it before it expires through short-term rentals. I like this change. This one's pretty harmless and neat. And then right beneath that, they're talking about how they're going to make some improvements to the familiar system. It seems like we're finally unlocking the other presets, kind of like what they did with the Legion presets, I'm guessing, where we had 2 free ones and then the rest were just locked off until you unlocked them for a month. And since we have 5 presets for familiars, I guess they're just gonna permanently unlock them? I don't know. Beneath that, expanding familiar inventory and bag slots. That's pretty big. I think that straight up confirms that we're getting familiar bags. I hope along with it, we also get bigger stacks of familiar cards because 100 is way too small. It would be cool if they went up to, at the very least, 1,000. I don't know how high they're gonna go, but if we get familiar bags, I'll be pretty happy. And also expanding the familiar inventory so we're not just locked to having 100 familiars in there. That'll be great for just fusion in general. And then also them saying that they're gonna remove less preferred elements, so they're removing junk lines. So that's pretty cool too. Now, if only they could change the tier up rate from epic to unique to not be as painful, that would be amazing. And then they start talking about account shared pre-quest progress. So if we cleared out some quests, I guess it's shared throughout the account now. That's kinda neat. And also, the transfer of Absolab/Arcane Umber equipment between characters within the same account will be supported. I don't know if that's going to apply to, like, Heroic and will allow us to put, like, Arcane boxes in storage. If so, that's going to be great for alts. That's going to be nutty. I'm going to assume for now that that's mainly for interactive, but if we get it in Heroic too, awesome. I can make use of all them boxes that I constantly seem to keep getting on my main that does not need more boxes. And then whenever I actively run on my alts, just nothing drops for months on end. And then I end up having to buy all the equips manually through droplets. And then they talk about some other quality of life stuff that's just a big improvement. The one notable one here for me that I'll point out is adding an invincibility status indicator when using iframe skills. I think that's going to be really handy for those classes that have iframes that aren't really specified or clear when they end. Depending on how fine it is, that could be a really nice change. And then at the end of this entire note, we got a big fat gift. I don't think people should be excited for the gifts in every Inkwell note. Yeah, they're nice, and while they give a ton of great stuff, and you just outright be insane not to take advantage of any of this, quite literally, they give you almost 400 free solar to fragments, 30 familiar card rerolls, free permanent NX, and a whole lot more. Ultimately, they're temporary fixes for long-term issues. We used to have a way to get these familiar cards listed in this gift, through in-game means, of just farming out the familiars, buying them through the point shop, and then being limited to buying like, I think it was 5 or 10 a month. And then they just took that feature away. They put a time limit on it, and then you just couldn't do that anymore. And it hasn't come back since. The only way you can get familiar card rerolls anymore, in Heroic at least, is through these Inkwell gifts. Otherwise, you're just having to roll for cards and hoping for the best. So that kinda sucks. Hopefully with the familiar card revamp, they give us a way to buy these reroll cards too. I don't know, they didn't list that. It just sucks that the current only solution to getting new familiars is grind more. I'm not a fan of that. Anyways, I feel like we should judge the note based on what's talked about and not the free stuff we get from it. The issues this game has had for the past few months of updates should not be forgiven so easily with just some extra items, because those long-standing issues are still there in the game. Just look at the incomplete list they provided recently in one of their Maple memos, compiling a few of the mistakes that they made in the past few updates alone. It's cool that they acknowledged this at all, but there was no solution to a lot of this or any actions taken. They were just kinda like, yeah, some Seas were able to hyperburn. Oops. Anyways, I'll remain hopeful for the future of GMS, despite its shortcomings. I'm a freak that thinks the game is in a pretty good spot at the moment, at least in terms of gameplay. Functionally, I still crash every often. It's still fun to me for the time being. Now for the Korean test server notes. I don't speak Korean, so I'm going off of what various Korean English YouTubers have been explaining, mixed with whatever Machine Translate spits back out me roughly in English. Also from class servers just kinda talking about certain changes. There's a ton of stuff in this KMS update, so I'll shorten it to the relevant points to me. Ring swap button is a pretty good thing. All of their boss changes that they talk about, I think, are just net negatives. It's cool that we get a new boss, the first adversary I think it's called. I don't know if that name's gonna change over in the West. But the fact that you can only enter 12 bosses a week, and then past that, you cannot just enter anything else once you've cleared those 12 bosses, I think is really stupid. I get why they're doing it for the economy purposes and so people can't farm out soul shards and bonus XP coupons, flames, whatever else drops in Korea from those bosses. And also to kind of prune carrying, because in their showcase, they made it a point to focus on the fact that they were punishing players that got carries through the harder bosses for eternal equips. That's kind of weird. They also talked about how they're lowering the pitched item drop chance for most bosses, and instead, they're giving out a pitched selector box, but only on higher tier bosses, like hard Kaling and above. Most people aren't going to be able to clear that, and that just shuts out any players that are anything below the way late stages of endgame mapling. Though, since it directly combats Inkwell's note, saying he wants to give us a way to keep our gear, and he recognizes pitched as a big pain point, I'm hopeful we won't get that detrimental feature. Best case scenario, we get pitch boxes from harder bosses, and the pitch drop rate for bosses doesn't get lowered, but we'll see. Also, another combative talking point, is Korea removing item burning outright entirely? While GMS seemingly wants to keep it, and even give a solution to transferring off of it from item burning equips into proper, more permanent gear sets, or maybe some temporary holdovers until we get Arcane and Pitched, for instance. Honestly, it feels like a handful of talking points in Inkwell's note was purposefully taking aim against the changes KMS is planning, so I have to wonder if that's why it was put out right before their big reveal, kind of as a don't worry type of thing. What can't be avoided, however, is class changes. Some good changes in here, but also a lot of weird ones. Some of which that completely yank away the identity of certain classes, making their playstyle just not exist anymore. One that bothers me personally, they remove Shade's Split. It's just entirely gone. That sucks. Blaze Wizard is a Hurricane Mage class now? Honestly, that looks kind of fun. And then my biggest one that I have an issue with, Blaster is completely changed. They have no more charging on any of their skills. Their main method of bursting while Cannon Overdrive is active is now limited to 10 Bunker Buster uses, and then Hammer Smash also now does no damage unless you have Cannon Overdrive active with Dynamo Gauge stacks, from what I understand. The patch notes list it differently, but I'm just going off what the Blaster Discord lists on their pinned comment. I'm really not a fan of this change. One, yeah, because it ruined a good portion of my Blaster guide. I don't care about that too much. But also two, I don't like Korea's recent approach to making every class more and more the same. I don't like that class homogenization they're trying to push towards. I think various playstyles should exist for this game, and it's no fun if everything is barreling towards being nearly identical, and you just pick whichever color of skills you like more. Some classes should be harder to play. At this rate, I expect most combo classes to be on the cutting board to fit into the square hole that is every class that only has to hold down one button after clicking their burst buttons. things like Kadena, maybe Thunderbreaker at a point. If they go the route of non-KMS classes, then maybe eventually also Mojuan and Hayato. I don't know. It already happened with Ilium a few months prior. We're getting that change to them pretty soon, I think in September with the 2-minute class changes, and now it's happening again with Blaster. I wish they wouldn't try to prune every single class variation, because it sucks. It's sad to see all the different playstyles just kind of disappearing over time and every class just being, you hold down a button. Really, that's all I wanted to talk about. It's interesting seeing both of these regions' notes side by side and wondering what we'll get versus completely skate right around over here in GMS. Outside of the class changes, I'm fairly confident we'll only get a small portion of these much scarier KMS changes, or they'll be retooled when they come our way. We'll see though. I'll end off the video with this comment I woke up to this morning from No Name Soggy Noodle, asking, what's my favorite class if Corsair is my second favorite? First off, Corsair is only my second favorite in terms of mobility. My actual favorite overall class is Ho-Young, my main. I love Ho-Young so goddamn much, and I hope they never change them. At the very least, if you're going to change them, please keep their glide. Don't ever remove that. That is my favorite skill in the whole game. A few classes below Ho-Young would be, in no particular order, Zero, Luminous, and Hayato. Phantom is kinda climbing up there too, the more I boss with mine over in Challenger World, but nothing is ever going to beat Ho-Young. Nothing. Hopefully this video was enjoyable to some extent if you watched this far. Let me know if you like this style of video. Thanks for watching and all that fun stuff, and yeah, don't worry, more guides are on the way. Maybe not necessarily class guides until the 2-minute changes come around, but I have ideas for videos. I might do some boss guides while waiting for the 2-minute class changes, or maybe still put out my Blaster guide despite everything. That's all.